Congressman, thank you.
Glad to be here.
Why you? Why are you the best to serve in the U.S. Senate?
Because I am who I say I am. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son of a single parent mother, and I'm a person of faith who's a pro-life, pro-Second Amendment conservative who supports the Trump-Pence agenda. And I have a record that proves that. The folks I'm running against, frankly, they're not who they say they are. Mike Braun, he's a lifetime Democrat pretending to be a Republican, just like Joe Donnelly. We're not going to beat Joe Donnelly with another Joe Donnelly. And Todd Rokita, running around the state with a MAGA hat, but when it comes to the tough votes to support the Trump-Pence agenda, Todd Rokita's not there. Hoosier Republicans want to partner for President Trump in this U.S. Senate seat. That's what my record is.
There are a number of calls for gun control after what we saw in Las Vegas, and as you know, the kids there in Parkland, Florida. There was also another, most recent school shooting, another in Florida.
Yeah.
Where is the balance, right? I'm going to imagine that you support the Second Amendment.
Of course.
But where do you stand, sir, on the AR-15,
Yeah.
these bump stocks, and then school safety? Should teachers be armed? Let's
Sure.
break it down on the big weapons.
We can go through that, but I'll tell you this. I support the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment supporters that I talk to are offended that somehow you can't be supportive of the Second Amendment and also care about school safety. I was one of the lead authors of the School Safety Act that just passed in Congress. It's modeled off of some of the safety processes and procedures that came from Southwestern Shelby High School, which, as you know, has been named one of the safest schools in America. It's in my congressional district. I believe we can protect Second Amendment rights, and we can also look out for schools.
But give me some specifics. And I've asked this of all the candidates. Where do you stand on the AR-15?
Well,
because that seems to be the big weapon that people talk
listen,
about.
I think that trying to ban certain categories of guns is the wrong approach. Listen, gun bans through history have only proven one thing, that they can keep guns from law-abiding citizens. The bad guys that use these guns in inappropriate ways end up finding a way to get them. If we want to focus on school safety, I'll give you three things we can do. First, we need, and we've provided through the School Safety Act, grant funding that will help schools improve their physical facilities. We need better training for both students and teachers. That's what they do at Southwestern Shelby School. And then we need to better coordinate with law enforcement. What they have at Southwestern Shelby are cameras in the school where the local sheriff's department can in real time see what is happening there. Those are the kinds of things we need to look at.
Your thoughts on those bump stocks?
Well, I mean, the president is working towards addressing that. That was an Obama-era change to the law through regulations in which they tried to allow bump stocks so that they could help people with disabilities. Obviously, particularly in Nevada, you ended up having that being abused. We need to take a hard look at that.
As you know, in Indiana, manufacturing is king.
Yeah.
We lead the country in manufacturing. When Congress recently passed the tax cuts, it was thought that would also help Indiana and the rest of the nation increase jobs. Was that enough? Are the most recent tax cuts enough, or do you see more in the future? And can we afford more?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, first, the tax cuts are important. They're important for Indiana workers, and they're important for Indiana small businesses. I talk to workers all across the state who are excited now that they see more money in their paycheck. They realize $1,000 or $2,000 more that will come back next year is real money. But they're also now seeing pay raises and bonuses that have all come because of these tax cuts. Small business owners are excited now because they can have more money to invest in their employees. They have more money to invest in capital projects in their business. I think, though, we can do more. And one of the first things that we need to do is we need to take a hard look at welfare reform. When I talk to manufacturers, they will tell you the hardest thing that they have in trying to grow their business is finding the workforce they need for the jobs that are there. And every able-bodied American should work. So we need to have the kind of welfare reform that gets people off of these government programs and gives them better incentives to work.
Congressman, you say welfare reform, since you brought it up, that's sort of the third rail.
Yeah.
What did you mean by welfare reform?
Well, what I mean is that you should have a work requirement. If you're on a program and you're able-bodied, you should either work for at least 20 hours a week, volunteer for 20 hours a week, or go to school to 20 hours a week, at a minimum. And I think if we had that, you would have more people in the workplace, which would be good for businesses too. But most importantly, it would give those citizens the benefits that come with work. Work is a blessing. We need to be encouraging that with these programs, not discouraging.
And be more specific on the issue that you think we can do more. As you know, the CBO has labeled this tax cut as one that will add to the deficit.
Yeah.
There's some talk that depending on how the economy goes, that those deficits could be reduced. But nonetheless, for now, The projection is more deficits. You are not for deficits, for your record.
Yeah.
So when you just said we could do more, how does that square in with the potential of adding more dollars?
Well, what we need is a growing economy. Look, the same CBO that gave the estimates that you described also estimated that Obamacare would somehow reduce the debt and deficit. That didn't happen. What I believe and what you're seeing in this economy is there are more jobs and better paying jobs. You talk to workers that are seeing their pay raised. You talk to employers that are being required to pay more to get the employees they need. So I believe you will see money come into to the federal coffers as you have more people getting better paying jobs. You know, we face three big challenges as a country. We've got to do more with our national security. The military has been underfunded historically. That's what was so important about the president's recent spending bill that passed. But we also have to deal with an economy to get it growing so there are better paying jobs, and we're going to have to deal with debt in the long run too.
Another issue that you would have to face, that you face in Congress, is that of immigration.
Yeah.
So what do you do, sir, with the Southern Wall?
Yeah.
What do you do with these folks known as DACA?
Yeah.
What is the solution to that?
Well, listen, if enforcing immigration laws and securing our border was unpopular, Hillary Clinton would be president. President Trump ran on this agenda, and we need to get it done. You know, it's interesting, securing our southern border didn't used to be partisan at all. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, these folks all voted for physical barriers on the southern border a decade ago. It just hasn't been funded. So the president is pushing hard to secure the southern border. The most recent spending bill that passed starts that with multiple $1 billion focused on the beginning build out of the wall, and then we can deal with DACA too. But as the president has said, no wall, no DACA. It ought not be controversial. We ought to be able to get a southern border secure. We ought to be able to move towards a merit-based immigration system, which is what the president has proposed. And in doing so, we ought to be able to deal with DACA too.
The president asked for National Guardsmen to go to the border. Not a first. Other presidents have done that. Do you support the use of the military on the southern border?
Well, listen, I think we need to kind of all hands on deck approach to securing the border. Physical barriers are an important part of that, and manpower on the border is important too. Right now, where we're undermanned, I think using the National Guard to make sure that you didn't have this brazen attempt to violate our law be successful was a good step.
Sir, as you travel around the state, as you travel around the country, you may have hit a pothole or two. Infrastructure is a serious issue, not only in the capital city of Indiana, but in small towns that you have to go to. We've often heard that infrastructure is a safe topic, that both Republicans and Democrats love it. Where is that plan, and can we afford it?
Well, look, this is an important priority for President Trump. He campaigned on it, he talked about it on election night, he talked about it at his inaugural address, and he's talked about it ever since. President Trump has put forward a solid plan that puts a couple $100 billion of federal government money in place, trying to encourage private investment. I think that's the right approach. Look, what would be, by the way, $700 or $800 billion more of private investment. I was in the Indiana legislature when Mitch Daniels used an innovative approach called Major Moves to encourage private investment and provide dollars that paid for almost a decade's worth of road funding. We did that without tax increases. So I think there is a path to do this in a way that creates public-private partnerships and encourages private investment. And as you've described, given some of the other challenges we have with broader spending in the federal government, that's an approach that seems to make a lot of sense to me.
We all want smoother roads, but can we afford it, right? The question is, we all don't want to hit a pothole. We don't want the mechanics bill. We don't want to lose a tire. But can we, Hoosiers, Minnesotans, Hawaiians, can we afford it?
Well, again, I think President Trump is onto the right idea. We can't afford it doing things the same old way. What we need to do is figure out ways to leverage private investment into the building out of roads. There's a lot of incentives for companies to do that. We need to provide more.
If the people of Indiana say, we will send you back to Congress as their U.S. Senator, what will be your priority? In light of the fact we've just spoken some heavy topics, what do you see as of today, because obviously the world can change between now and January, but at this moment in time, what would be the priority that Luke Messer would take to the U.S. Senate if you had that opportunity?
Well, I'll give you two. First, I'm a working kid that grew up the son of a single parent mother who recently retired from the Delta Faucet factory. And I think one of our #1 priorities has to be a growing economy where people have an opportunity for good paying jobs. So President Trump's policies cutting taxes and reducing regulations are big steps in the right direction, but we need to do more to make sure we have the training available for people so that they can get a good paying job. I also think we've got to reform the United States Senate. Listen, there is so much frustration there across Indiana because people see the United States Senate as a broken institution that's failing to deliver for the American people. As a Republican, the Republican majority is failing to deliver on the Trump-Pence agenda. We need a conservative U.S. Senator, and then we need to get rid of the filibuster, this rule that makes it almost impossible for that body to function.
Are you afraid if you get rid of that, though, and you are not in the party of the majority, that it could come back and haunt you? One of the reasons why that they've not done away with the nuclear option is that there's a fear that if the Democrats were to ever regain control, that then you would make the counter-argument.
Well, listen, I think whatever the filibuster used to be, and there may be an argument that at one point it contributed to bipartisanship. Today, the filibuster, this rule that you have to have 60 votes to pass something of consequence in the Senate, has become a tool of partisan gamesmanship that puts the minority party in charge and frustrates the American people. Listen, in a republic, elections have to matter. Right? People have to feel like their vote makes a difference. And so I think whatever the rule used to be, it's outserved its purpose and it needs to go away.
Look, Besser, all the best to you, sir.